Warp in 3, 2, 1.
Alright, computer. Let's hook up to the local GNet and let's get this going.
Initiating connection to Jupiter GNet Hub. Connection to Jupiter GNet Hub established.
Okay, computer. Open up comms to all our viewers and begin transmitting our latest file.
Transmitting John and the space boat, the Fish Whisperer.
After Sonny departed the Tumbling Apple, John and his future assistant Eve spent an hour sitting on one of the benches outside. Watching various people coming and going, they both sat quietly and casually checked their PDAs from time to time. Many more millions of links came from his subscribers. John spent most of this hour reading, answering, and basically reacting to the data ripples his stream made on the local GNet. Ripples, more like tidal waves, and his PDA, no matter how advanced, was only capable of showing a third of it. 1 hour after the stream, there were a few million of them still awake and chatting. Those who formed the John Space Exploration Corps, or JSEC, were in the majority. His face was again adorned with a huge happy smile. The JSEC members vowed to never go looking for this place. That, and they made the commitment to inform others, warn them of the dangers associated with ill-prepared exploration trips. Just like anything else on the GNet, this group has started as a forum, a place where John's fans who owned FTL-capable starships could gather. They exchange information of various travel destinations, sweet, wholesome spots to visit, mostly following in John's footsteps. Soon, this community grew rather quickly, since most Terrans were capable of navigating and plotting a starship. The fact that tiny spacecrafts were easily accessible on the market, cheap, sturdy, and easy-to-maintain vessels were a staple of Terran space manufacturing companies. Just like the early 19th and 20th century industrial revolutions made most amenities previously available to the rich accessible to those people with a modest income, spacecraft became the automobile of the future. Tiny ships, like with the Wings shuttlecrafts, for example, were mass-produced and in large numbers. Moreover, the Terrans, being the independent people that they were, often crafted said ships by hand, modifying the already sturdy and dependable designs even further. Tinkering with the family shuttles became a favorite pastime for many, and some crafts were passed from parent to children, well maintained, kept in pristine condition. The JSEC were more like a big army of space campers. Most of the time, they organized special groups, each visiting a specific location which John had streamed from earlier. Often these small groups turned into large formations. Instead of a simple tiny shuttlecraft, some JSEC members owned and had built themselves dropship-sized vessels. Those could ferry up to 30 people or more, and some even carried ground recreation vehicles inside their cargo hold. Well protected and armed with defensive armaments, these convoys had so far been attacked only once. The holo footage still circulated the local Terran GNet channels, and John had to admit it was rather hilarious. Some wannabe pirates, keen on proving themselves and hoping to being accepted into a proper pirate clan, attempted to pounce on his subscribers. The inept ambush attempt soon turned into a turkey shoot. A prudent bunch, JSEC members were often accompanied by a system Colonial Navy patrols, and this time they even had a couple guest sea loggers. Armed to the teeth, they blew the pirate crafts to pieces, and some even snagged parts of the loot in the form of salvage. At first, soon after the fan group had been formed, John worried that something might happen, that he'd be somehow responsible if any JSEC members got hurt. This phase quickly passed, though. Terrans were capable, and everyone knew the risks of space travel, after all. Even the shortest FTL jump could go wrong once in a while. Moreover, his subscribers always made sure that they were well prepared and supplied for the journey ahead. The best thing was that John's trips were not in unsafe areas, but places with plenty of security forces and many other friendly alien starships. That, and they always made sure to gather plenty of information about what had been happening in these parts in advance of their trips. Calmed a bit after his subscribers made sure to do the same after this stream, John addressed Eve. "What do your rabbit ears say? Is Amy coming soon or not?" The bunny looked at him, scratched her nose, and then chuckled. "My ears say nothing. But the link she sent me a minute earlier did. Amy is concluding a big deal with one of her Earth contacts. She said it was a secret and that you will get a special ride into the marketplace tomorrow." Her way of saying, "Sorry, John." Amy always does stuff like this since, forever. One time I was hired to guide another person around Apple Crate, and she vanished 5 minutes before her set meeting with him. The bunny sighed and patted both her ears and then stood up. "Come, there's one place I wanted to show you tomorrow, but since Amy's unavailable..." She cracked her paws and hopped in place for a couple of times. John quickly stood up too and looked around curiously, trying to discern where his guide would take him. He pointed at the holocam and asked her, "The place you're taking me to, can I record there?" Eve smiled and pointed her paw at the river. He could see, only after looking at the spot she showed him, one tiny pier came into his view. What was the river called? Blind Waters, right? John remembered that the local waterway was deep and indeed full of tasty fish. Perhaps Eve knew someone who'd traveled this mysterious waters. Yep, blind, watery, and full of wriggly fishes. She then skillfully led him around the tumbling apple and between some homes. The bunny knew where all the tiny alleyways led and with ease navigated Apple Crate's residential area. Soon they reached the colony's westernmost outskirts, traversed the small forest patch between them and the river. It took them no more than half an hour to reach the pier, and Eve had linked its owner beforehand. The man was probably over 100 years old, long white blonde hair, a well-kept beard, his head covered with something resembling a fisherman's hat. A pair of curious-looking green eyes studied John's face before the elder offered his hand and greeted him. "The name's Malcolm Bigsby III. Welcome to my pier, John. You are probably wondering what I'm doing here," introduced himself, and the man then pointed at John's already set in recording mode holocam. "It's a place where locals and tourists can come, learn more about our blind fishes." "What can you tell me about them, Mr. Malcolm? I am sure that some of my subscribers know that your fishy friends are lacking the ways to observe their surroundings, yet they seem quite capable of swimming around. Am I right?" John aimed his camera at the nearby waters where something big swam slowly, lazily even, against the river stream. "Eve was one of my best students. You haven't forgotten how to prep the boat, have you, Smart Eyes?" Malcolm snickered, while the bunny shook his hands with both paws, hugged him, and then quickly ran across the pier. Eve certainly looked like she knew her way around, and John smiled. exactly the person an H-logger needed as his or her guide. The more secretive, lesser-known places he could discover and record for his subscribers to watch, the better. Smart eyes? He pointed at her, smiling, and canted his head, expecting Mr. Malcolm to tell him how the bunny got such a colorful nickname. Instead, what he got was a generic answer. Why, yes, we all knew she'd be something big someday, like a starship bridge officer or maybe even a captain. One only needed to look into her curiously laden eyes once. Thankfully, the monarchy is not like any of them GA star states. We like our clients to have the freedom to choose. Some of the older humans weren't that chatty when it came to their own and their friends' past. John nodded understandingly and then pointed at the river. I assume we're gonna go fishing? Beckoned him to follow the pier, Malcolm while tapping his pockets. It was obvious that the elder was looking for something. Before they reached the pier's end, Eve had already maneuvered the flatbed riverboat out of her small hangar. She loaded it with a portable stasis fish bag, a bucket full of breading, and then a couple of long, ending with metal hoops, poles. Each had a lever on it, and if John's guess was correct, those activated low-powered force field emitters. One could catch a fish of moderate size using a fishing pole like this, but only if they were skilled. Somewhat confused by Malcolm's answer, John inspected the river with somewhat perplexed look. Perhaps some of those fishies were out of season? It depends on what. I never saw any note restricting fishing on this river or on the G-Net. Could you elaborate, Mr. Malcolm? Well, it depends if our friends are willing and ready to be fished out of the waters, calmly stated the old fisherman, fixed his hat, and boarded the boat. What does that mean? Slightly confused. John nevertheless boarded the boat, too, and ordered his holocam to follow the big fish, which still swam nearby. Malcolm and Eve both caught what he was looking at, and the bunny smiled. John, that's old Momo you're looking at. Wanna pet him? Can I? Hesitantly asked John, again inspecting the fish, trying to determine its length. His subscriber admittedly stated that none of this planet's creatures were even remotely dangerous. Of course you can. Scratch him under the jaw, but gently. Momo likes that. Stated Mr. Malcolm and piloted the boat near the fishy friend, who, far from being startled or swimming away, actually got closer. The fish was even longer than John thought it to be. Slowly, Momo scratched his scaly body against their boat, and John reached down. It would be his first time petting a fish, and suddenly, the moment he placed his hand into the water, a feeling of unbelievable serene calm took over his very being. His hand touched the scaly fish, and slowly, gently, just as it was advised, he scratched Momo's underjaw. The fish soon flapped with its tail, much akin to a dog, rolled over so that the person who petting him could easily reach the good spot. Soon, Eve joined him and began scrubbing Momo's scales with a small brush. Her aim was to remove the slit which covered some of them. It seemed that today a couple of fishies were willing to be fished, John. Leave our lazy friend to soak up the evening sun and grab one of the poles. That the fish are willing is true, yet we must still be able to catch them.
Okay, computer, that's it. Disconnect from the G-Net and set course for Omnia Prime.
Disconnecting G-Net. Setting course, Omnia Prime. Spooling engines now. Initiating. Jumping in 3, 2, 1.